Okay. All right, good evening, everyone. It is Tuesday, June the 27th at 6:30 p.m. So we'll officially call this evening's board meeting to order. So we will do a full roll call. So start at this time, okay?
Chad Overjack, something to district two.
Carly Hoover, District 1. Dr. Laura Feliz, Morris, District 4.
Dave Electric District 5.
And then welcome to all of our guests, both joining us in person and online. So we'll kick us off with a welcome message.
Yeah, but that's left over to the next time. Okay. Welcome, everybody. When we come together, we join in these 4 agreements that come from courageous conversations. Stay engaged, experience discomfort, be vulnerable, speak your truth, and expect and accept non-encouragement. And so we will continue with that tradition tonight. And we also like to share our land recognition. We in the Tukwila School District acknowledge that the land where we teach, collaborate, learn, and play is the traditional land of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish and Muckleshoot people past and present, and honor with gratitude the land itself and the Duwamish and Muckleshoot tribes. As a public school district, we have a responsibility for the stewardship of this land, and we strive to work alongside the Duwamish and Muckleshoot people who have been living and working here since time immemorial. We further acknowledge that the burden of environmental exploitation and systemic injustice falls upon the labor of Black and brown bodies in the building of this country and its institutions. We remember that Black and brown people were born and died working this land against their will for generations. We also acknowledge the continued contribution of the labor of survivors over the centuries to today of all immigrant labor, including voluntary, involuntary, trafficked, forced, and undocumented peoples in the building of what we refer to as the United States. As a school district leadership, we pledge to recognize and work against systems that have historically and currently enforced and create inequities among the people we serve.
All right, now I'll invite you, if you would like, to stand as we. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right, so we're gonna, sorry, want to make a motion to amend the agenda and move at least the presentation 8A for the tilt of the garden design up earlier. So perhaps before the report, so we'll do public comment and then that presentation. And then we'll continue on with presentations later. That way our guests from Tilt don't have to stay unless you would like to, of course, stay for this very riveting business. So if I could get a second on approving the agenda with that amendment. Second. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Aye. Okay, I think I did that right. All right, so stand approved with that amendment. So now that brings us to our first opportunity for public comment. As a reminder, there are many different ways that you can provide public comment. One is by providing that in writing prior to the meeting, submitting it either via email or with the online form. You can also do it live and in person by signing up with the sign sheet at the front, or raise your hand if you are joining us on Zoom. All of the ways with which to do that. You can also type your name in the chat. So in just a second, one that came in. It was in the packet. Okay, forget page. Sorry. One moment. Sorry, he's not moving around.
Oh, it's in the midst of the sign things. No?
No, that's not it. So everyone, there we go. Okay. I just gave everybody time. Okay. There's no public comment, but we have one written. From what I understand, this was actually received for the last meeting. So it came in after. They came in after. Okay. And this is from Lizette Flores Gonzalez. Hi, I'm a student at Foster High School. I was given an opportunity to help the composting team. Since then, what I do is help students sort through what they're about to throw away into our composting bin and garbage bin during my lunches. Me and the person who helps me usually leave 5 minutes before lunch ends to empty the bin and return the sign where we've been using it. Everyone that comes over and helps fill the compost bin, I thank. I don't know if they leave smiling because they got a thank you or because they know they're making a difference, but at the end of the day, we're all making a difference together. Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you for your comment. And for those of you that missed our meeting last time, we had a beautiful presentation to one of our students about some composting program that they have started at Foster High School. And we had big dreams about implementing that district-wide, so we'll see. Okay. So no other public comment, then that brings us to our reports for today. So start with this student rep report.
I was, oh, I'm sorry, I thought we were doing it.
Oh, we are. Everybody's got to keep me on. We'll know this already. Okay. Thank you. Welcome to the top. Yeah.
Yes, okay, it's my pleasure to introduce Chris Hopper and Kerry Garden, who are here from Tilt today to do the presentation. Let me give you a little background on Tilt. Tilt Alliance is a nonprofit organization that has worked for more than 40 years with Washington farmers, gardeners, and eaters to build a sustainable, healthy, and equitable food future. Locally, they offer classes for adults on how to grow food, manage community learning gardens, and farms in King County. Support local food distribution and market opportunities for organic farmers, and partners with students, schools, and families to connect with their community and the natural world through meaningful experiences in gardens, farms, and kitchens. In Tukwila, Tilt has worked with local organizations for more than a decade, such as providing gardening resources and support to the Tukwila Community Garden, like the International Rescue Committee's Namastock Garden, Riverton Park and Gullings Garden, Pea Patch, and King County Housing Authority properties, as well as sharing culturally relevant plant starts with BIPOC, immigrant, and refugee gardens. For the past 3 years, Tilt has worked with Foster High School to provide teacher education related to environmental stewardship, professional development opportunities for students, and has engaged Foster High School students in youth employment and training opportunities. And they're here tonight to present a garden plan for the Tukwila School District. I'm not just going to say Foster High School, but the entire district will benefit from this. And they've done a marvelous job, and please enjoy the presentation.
Can I stand on some slides?
Yeah, see, we're this week.
I'm Carrie, and thanks for having us here. I'm Chris. So what we're looking at, I think in the series of slides, we put kind of like a big overall dream plan first, and then what we've done is kind of like broken it into phases. And we've been working with Joe and his students and Jeff, and we were able to take so you probably know this, but there is a garden that is really well loved, and so I think part of this project is there was a lot of work, community work that had gone into designing that garden. And then the garden is right, actually, so to orient you here, this is the stadium. The garden exists right here. This is the tennis court, and the baseball field is along this side, and then this is a road. And so the garden exists here, and it has to be moved to allow for this sort of emergency egress. And so that was the impetus in asking us to kind of dream big about what a full design could be. So this is the future dream plan of everything that could possibly be in there, and there's a lot of components. But if you go to the next slide, I think what oh, thank you. Oh, yeah, it goes down. Okay, so oh, that's what I just was referring to. So this is a Google map. This is it's a PDF, right? So you're just scrolling down. So this is the, what a satellite image of the garden existing. So the first step really is to kind of move this over. This garden, as it exists, was designed by the students, so we really wanna like honor the design, but then also add in a shed and an outdoor classroom. And then kind of a fence to go around that. So that would be phase one. And if you scroll down a little bit, I think we can. Yeah, okay, so here's the phasing out. This would be phase one with that garden moved over. We've got a shed, and one of the cool things about the shed is when you have a roof, there's an opportunity to collect water, there's an opportunity to collect solar power, which I think is a really good connection with the CTE programs and after-school programs, to be able to kind of have the students design and build and implement that there. There also will be some outdoor seating with some shade cloth and then a fence around it. I think a fence is really important for the students because they wanted to kind of have it feel like it was kind of a protected space. If we go into the next phase here, phase two, we're gonna add another learning space here. We'll put some agricultural beds, potentially a house for a greenhouse, which could be part of phase two. We've added it to phase four, thinking that that is like a thing that might happen further into the future. So I'm just popping that out. So it can be agricultural beds now, but potentially be a more permanent structure there. And then a kitchen classroom, so that the culinary arts program can have do class outside as well. Phase three is on a kind of a slope, so we put an orchard that is kind of opened up as like more of a food forest. So instead of having many trees together, a few trees with some smaller shrubs and other perennial food bearing perennials kind of throughout there. And then phase four, which is some theme gardens. These two will be behind kind of a lower fence to feel protected, but the orchard area and the theme gardens will be open to the community. If you want to keep scrolling, there's a little bit more detail. So this is more detail about phase one, which is the garden as it exists, just moved over with the shed, solar on the shed. There's potential to collect water. There's potential to have like a 3-bin composter. So integrate into maybe some of the composting that's happening even in the cafeteria. There's a lot of potential connection with that. I think connecting this garden space to whatever is happening in the schools, I think is really kind of the goal of having this educational space. And if we scroll up a little bit, we kind of just blocked in some of the things, like we're gonna move the garden beds. Part of this first phase, also because there isn't any water access to, the current water access comes from the stadium. So there might be an importance in getting water to the field. It doesn't currently have like sprinkler irrigation. So that might be a piece to have a conversation on how we get water access. And it's not either, but we're kind of laying out if we were to trench irrigation to allow for 4 to 6 hose bibs to be able to provide water to the entire design. Perimeter fencing, the 10 by 10 shed, I think that's small enough that can hold a lot of equipment, but it's not a huge footprint, so it's, that seems to be what was asked for, yeah, that size. We also, so there was some pool culture beds, which are, kind of, if you, see, can you scroll back down just a little, sorry. There's this kind of edge along, oh yeah, just along the edge here, this is the tennis court, and there's some seating, but we wanted to put in a little bit of some plantings of native plants to support birds and pollinators, but it's been sort of broken up. There are little islands of plantings instead of having one big hedge, just to not to have it broken up so that there's visibility throughout, and we're not like making any places where we can't have like eyeline views. So let's see, I think that's a lot of phase one. So that's kind of the things that will be coming up soon. If we go to phase two, I think that there's we put some images here. So here's like potential shed and some solar panels and some water collection. You could have like, this is a small water catchment, but there could be even like a much bigger one. You can collect 200, 300, 500 gallons. Ways to do some, you know, composting of bio waste so that we can keep that on site, turn that into usable compost.
Debbie, is there a way to zoom out so we can see the whole slide at a time?
Keep going? Okay.
Good.
And yeah. Okay, so yeah, so phase two would be like the next cool thing, which is if this phase was kind of surrounded by that fence, we might remove that fence and make the fence a little bit bigger. So this would be an opportunity for if students want to learn about farming. And then also, we heard the students interested in that there are a lot of cultural groups in Tukwila, a lot of folks, maybe immigrant refugees that are coming from backgrounds and agricultural backgrounds, and also hoping for like this connection to this place through food. And so there's a lot of opportunity for like culturally relevant foods for the community, which could be done in sort of this like larger agricultural way. We've also put in kind of native food plants here, so we have a lot of like indigenous culture, you know, of this place. Foods like berries and lots of berries from this place, lots of good berries. So I think some other plants too, like camas bowl, which I have a love for camasburg. If we get to camasburg, I will talk about camasburg. And some propagation. I think there's a couple images that we put on here, but you know there's an opportunity for that propagation, that native plant propagation, or other types where students can grow out nursery stock. They can even have a plant sale if you want to do some like entrepreneurial sort of connection there. But then there also would be this building is actually just a covering. It's open walls, but it would be an outdoor kitchen space. So there's a little space here to gather. We could do some cooking. We could have some events. We could do cooking classes. And then because it's a roof, we can also collect solar, we can also collect water off of it. And then there's perhaps, we could use that as a wash pack. So anything that they're harvesting from here, they could wash it, pack it, and then potentially share that into the community somehow. That sink will have to have some water access to do that washing. And then it would drain out into this little area that could be kind of planted as a rain garden to receive that drain flow. Did I get that? Part of this phase two is in the area surrounding the outdoor classrooms. We want to make sure that there is an opportunity to pave it with gravel to make it accessible for all the students, whether they are walking or on wheels, or however getting there. So ADA accessibility, at least to the main classroom areas, I think is important. I think that's most of the list there. If we scroll up, I think we can get to phase three. So phase three would potentially be an orchard. And there's this kind of sloped area of the field, so we would be kind of planting down the slope, which I think gives some cool opportunity for like what kind of plants to choose. But mostly we were thinking more for smaller fruit trees, not a huge orchard like you would see just like trees and trees and trees, but fewer trees, smaller ones, and then some kind of layered plantings. Or planting, sometimes we call it a food forest or like planting in guilds. So it's not just a tree, but it's tree and other plants around it to kind of help support in a community. The students were really interested in having educational signage throughout all of the gardens. So as different phases are implemented, developing signage to be able to tell passersby, people that are interacting with that space, what's going on and how to get more information. And they are able to design and actually print out those signs, which is really cool. Mason bees, we heard the students interested in pollinators and other mason bees and other native bees. And so there's an opportunity there to like, mason bees are some of the earliest pollinators, so that they're out there with the fruit tree blossoms. So they're really nice to have in partnership with fruit trees specifically, but also there are a lot of opportunities for native bees, native pollinators. There's some extra stuff in here if you want to learn more about like food forests or planting in guilds. There's kind of some sort of like all of this community of this ecosystem and like how everyone's interacting with each other. Let's see, if we go to phase 4, I think is, yes, phase 4. So we were requested to do a 5-year plan. Instead of doing a 5-year plan, we chunked it into 4 phases. But honestly, looking at kind of the bigger picture, any of those phases can be implemented in whatever order it seems helpful to do it. But we kind of ordered it this way because it seemed this was the most important. This was also another educational space that could stay within the fence line, and then putting other things. This themed gardens, I'm really excited about because this is a way to kind of invite the community into the space. So there's a water feature here that the students can design and build, and if it is a water moving like a fountain, that can also be solar powered. They also were interested in having some shade for that water feature, because that water is to support birds and bees and other creatures, and so having some shade there for protection could be growing up a trellis. We've also put some park benches in there. When we were out on the site, we noticed that a lot of the community walks along this pathway. We've seen a lot of seniors walking, a lot of people walking their dogs. And so having some of these pathways that kind of invite them in to discover some of these gardens, and then kind of, or enjoy the orchard, have a place to sit, enjoy the nice peaceful atmosphere, learn something from educational signage, and then kind of keep going on their walk, I think is a nice invitation. And so the themed gardens could be culinary herb gardens, they could be cultural food gardens, they could be, you know, I think that I gave a list of suggestions, but there are also whatever is calling to the students, especially as this being phase 4, it could be like, well, what are we missing from what we have so far? There are also some like bigger beds of native pollinator plants to support our local native pollinators, a little bit of Camas Prairie. Sorry, I'm talking very quickly. I don't know how long 10 minutes is, but I want like so much cool stuff that I want to like get a lot to. But I've been working with some folks down in Olympia at an organization called Garden Raised Bounty Grub, and they have a program where they have this amazing curriculum. One of their folks that they're working with is actually building out micro Camas prairies, and Camas prairie is like a native cultural ecosystem of our Coast Salish territories. So a lot of folks are excited about native foods, and I think for most of Turtle Island, there's like growing. People talk a lot about Three Sisters, like corn, beans, and squash. And here in Coast Salish territory, where it's not really, we can't really grow corn that well, but the indigenous food systems from here, a lot was Camas Prairie. So and that is an ecosystem that has been maintained by humans for thousands of years. And so if we wanted to have that connection with indigenous tribes and bring back some of that really important cultural foods of this place, I think, anyways, very excited about Camas Prairie. My students will be outcome to tell them about the Camas Prairie, bring in my gal Shauna. And so that's really rad. Also here, we put along this access road too, some opportunities to like share that kind of the bounty of the garden out with the community. So there's an opportunity to have like a little free seed library. There could be a self-serve farm stand that's just like, if they're growing food, they wash, pack it, and then they put it in the farm stand. Anybody walking by can partake. Whatever that looks like, but being able to kind of share out even in an unmanned or you know, doesn't need to have a person there to be doing that kind of farm stand, or it could be like on a Saturday morning or after school garden club, they're out there, you know, kind of being in that space and sharing food with whoever walks by. It could look like a lot of things. I think there are throughout this garden, there are a lot of components of things like benches and seating, structures to be built, even the greenhouse or the shed that students from the CT programs can actually design and build. And I think that's a really great way to kind of have the students have ownership over this place and also really integrate it into the community of the school, especially since what we've seen in school gardens, like if there's one advocate, like it's a rad project until that person isn't there anymore. But what, you know, Joe and Jen have been doing, I think is really smart, is like really integrating all of this CTE teachers, all of that after school programs, and really kind of like getting community partners in on board so that it's not just sitting with that one person or that one teacher, but that kind of it's a webby community that supports this garden and not just one teacher that has like a big plan. Educational signage, shades and trellises, some of the students are like, we have folks that come from areas that grow grapes, and so we want to, show grapes, and they're really excited about cultural foods from many of the people that live in this community, coming from all different places in the world, potentially, and just being able to like share food and discover those cultural food crops. So, yeah. I'm gonna stop, but if you want to scroll up to the last slide, just so that we can see the big picture again. There's again all of those components that kind of pop in there, but this is the big plan, and again, phased out, but really just like this is kind of the big dream, and it, however it rolls out is one of the cool opportunities, like because there's so many different kinds of things, I think we've also included some kind of budgetary documents, but like ways that this school, Foster High School, also even the middle school can be involved and partner with community organizations that we already have partnerships with, but also create some more. Questions?
I was just wondering, does that field have irrigation already?
It does not have irrigation, so that's gonna be kind of a big, I think one of the things that really would help this project thrive is being able to bring water access to here. So there's, I think the way that they're watering the garden right now is flows coming from the stadium. Yeah.
I'm surprised that field doesn't have irrigation.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to have any sprinkler on it.
Never any reason for it.
Is the hose the only way that we could be bringing water to the new place, or is that?
It currently is now, and so I think the project would have to, like how they would bring irrigation if they wanted to, like sprinkler irrigate this field, they would trench like irrigation lines under the field. And that would be a project that would need to be kind of approved and then permitted. Thank you.
And with the two structures, with the storage and the outdoor kitchen, we have the capability of collecting rainwater, which is like another sustainable design element of the space.
So there is, the roof small, collect rainwater, which would be great for irrigation, and would not be potable water for kitchen classrooms. But then there also, where that hosted is on the stadium, there is like rooms that actually have a series of cisterns, and we wanted to collect a lot of rainwater, it's a metal roof. So that would be actually really, it seemed like it'd be like a safety issue. It's like literally a metal roof and then a downspout, we could just cut, I saw Chris eyeing it up there. So there's a lot of opportunity to collect rainwater also, but I think, yeah, realistically, to be able to have like kitchen classroom functioning and to be able to really have these spaces be as dynamic and lush as they could be and grow the amount of food that we want to grow, bringing water access would be important.
Is part of the intent of this to have ultimately a self-sustaining food system within Tukwila? No. What would it, I'm a vision person too.
Yeah.
So what would it look like to scale long-term, something like this, to then become a sustainable food source for our district?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be planning there, ultimately this is a huge space, that can grow a lot. What it needs is the infrastructure to grow that food, who's gonna grow it, who's gonna organize it, and who's gonna distribute it. And if the students can do that, that can be part of the plan. Yeah,
So just think, I mean, looking at the kind of the breakdown of costs with the exception of the irrigation system, I mean, it's about $74,000 estimated on the high end for the whole project, which to me, I think about the return on investment seems really minimal. At the end of the day, the 70K, obviously. This is really, and then particularly if we think about what it means to actually use that food, not just to support community, not just for giving, but also like to serve in our cafeterias. And this kind of came up a little bit when we were hearing about the food service presentation 2 meetings ago. He's really trying to do a lot about getting more student input and not just input, but also like their hands in the stuff. And I think this could be just like the next level of how we really engage in that. So I think there's just like so much potential here. And we don't teach these skills anymore. So it's just all has to have this idea and this connection back to.
Yeah. I think it is really important too, and we were talking about like outdoor spaces and outdoor learning spaces being a thing that is gonna be important going into the future, like of course, coming out of like a global pandemic where like, like still we're in the indoor spaces with other people, but and having that opportunity to like, if we need to go outside and learn, there's a space for that. But I think you're right about those skills of like growing food, but also being within ecosystems, like being out in nature, like watching birds and understanding their importance, seeing how we're all connected, like that is a very different learning than when you're learning in a school building. And so, and also in having these certain agricultural spaces where they're literally can be growing food to feed people in their community, to go into the kitchen, their school cafeterias. I think about like green jobs, and like some of that is like slower, and some of that is like new technologies, but also like just being able to grow food, being able to do like landscaping permitting, being an arborist, being an orchardist, like it's all perfectly like incredibly important jobs as well. And so, honoring and acknowledging that like people that grow our food are also like those are important jobs too. Yeah.
It's also a good way to bring food into the elementary classrooms and trying different foods and.
Yeah, and being able to, being able to share the space out with everybody in the district, I think, having these sort of protected classroom spaces so that if you want, you can actually do some learning without being distracted by other things going on. And it, can be specifically for high school, for the middle school, for elementary schools in the area to come and learn here. And Joe's class has been doing some age where the seniors are teaching preschoolers and like, oh, that can happen here instead of going to another site. Like they came out to the farmer beach, which is awesome, but also that can happen here. They wouldn't have to go far. They wouldn't have to find transportation.
I'm wondering like, okay, 2 questions. First one is kind of like, I'm kind of having, I can't envision like how, because I know that's a lot of space, but how much substance of food, like how much would we actually produce, like on a monthly basis or on a yearly basis that we could actually give out to people?
It's a good question. And I think part of that depends on what gets planted. Part of the document that we given is, John Jeff is some plant suggestions, but there are like, so the garden beds here are would be like kind of like how you would put in a backyard garden, and then these are like how you would grow food in a field. So these 2 areas are really going to be growing a lot of like annual vegetable crops potentially, and then there are these native foods propagation to be able to grow like potentially grow berry bushes to then out into the community to either sell or to like share with others, so you're not just growing the fruit, but also growing the bushes to grow more fruit. And then the orchard would be fruit trees, berry bushes, these would be more perennial foods. And then the theme gardens, Canons Prairie would be also native foods. And the theme gardens could look like culinary herbs, medicinal herbs. So it's kind of diversified. Yeah, and like thinking about like what like a poundage per season or a poundage per year would be is maybe, for me also too hard to imagine, but I think it kind of comes down to how the space is utilized, yeah.
Dennis, we have about 7 carrots. And about 12 tomatoes right now. And that's, okay, just counting.
It's a good start.
Yes, and the old version,
I'm kind of curious about the kind of fencing. I think it's a great use of the space. I'm a little concerned about security. So you're talking about putting a 3 or 4 high foot fence around some of these facilities that potentially could be vandalized. I mean, we have that issue in our area, unfortunately. And I know, I think the community gardens in Tiverton in general, my question is, they don't really get vandalized that much. I mean, communities kind of, you know, you can take ownership of it.
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
those things don't happen, but I'm just kind of curious what you're thinking about, is the fence, what the intent of the fence, is it to really keep who out?
The fence is, I think, more of a visual
Yeah.
information setting
Okay.
and culture setting around that space. It's not gonna keep anyone out that isn't actually trying to get in.
Right.
I think part of it is like where you are invited to enter and how you're invited to enter. And so I know, that fence, the kind of the size of it, and then what we, proposed was like hot wire fencing with cedar, was something that I think came from the students, and they're like, we want it to be protected, but we don't want it to look like.
Not all of you. They want you to, like, they want you to see the space and think, I'm not supposed to be there when I'm not supposed to be there, but I'm also allowed to be here when I'm allowed to be here. Because right now it's kind of open season.
Yeah.
What I've been saying is we've had a lot of unintentional vandalism in the garden because that space isn't, we don't have a fence around it right now.
Right.
But lately there has been intentional vandalism where people are going and picking plants out. So the fence will provide that extra step to give to someone, give them an extra chance to think, do I really want to go out and like pull out the strawberries?
Right.
Probably not if there's a fence. But people who are committed,
Yeah.
they see the solar panels,
Sure.
they're gonna go. And I will say at Namaste, one of the things that, the 2 things that are vandalized the most are the greenhouse and their storage shed.
Yeah, that's what I.
Yeah.
And I'm also thinking, you know, could we point a camera, you know, off the stadium in that area? And just put a sign, you know, smile, you know,
We got 2 signs already,
yeah,
24 hours a day. And there definitely are cameras there right now, so.
yeah.
Have you guys thought about implementing like to the security question, have you guys, for the fence thing? Have you guys thought about implementing like an open hours and close hours, like so after like, I don't know, 7 p.m. You can't enter anywhere and then have people lock the fence gate? 'Cause that could help alleviate some of them.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely having some kind of signage that like lets people know if they are invited to enter the space and when they would be. And locking it when, yeah, definitely, you know, don't want people to go in there, but. You know, I think security is kind of an issue for any public space. Patterns that I've seen is like the more utilized and on purpose and love a place feels, the less likely, I mean. If it looks like there's something valuable in there, that's a thing, right? But, the garden, community garden that I work at, the bathroom was like mosaic, like our mosaic tiles. There's a really lovely bathroom and, except for, right, there was some arson, which was, a much bigger thing than just that bathroom, but like for the entirety of the 12 years I've been at that garden, nobody has ever graffitied that bathroom. And I know that that's like, that's a strong thing to like, it's because of the beautiful art tile, but I think it is a trend that the more, something looks, maintained and loved and utilized, that it looks like that's somebody's, thing that's happening. And I think with the students, especially with, high school students there and potentially middle school students there, and like as the community gets to use that space and those young people have ownership over that space. You know, they know folks in the community, and so they're gonna be like, hey, this is my phone, like, don't mess with my phone, right? And I think that goes along with, so.
And I guess you said that was a requirement, but I like the fact that you're moving it out because I know graduation and different types of stadium just flows out into that area. And so, which could be, you know, a good thing it's, you know, the educational side and it gets more people exposed to it, which is great, but you need that little buffer there, I think it's good, yeah.
And technology, that's how people are using that space,
Yeah.
so leave that open for them. Anyway, yeah, kind of kept that large open space and then fine.
My son, who is not a classroom scholar, said that he had had an opportunity like this in high school, he might have enjoyed it. It's a wonderful concept.
So, Dennis has one more question, and then, I'd like to do this. Give you the other.
Last question, just for the first, the phase 1, phase 2, not counting the irrigation system, because it sounds like it's gonna take some time. Do you have a timeline on how long we could expect to have phase 1 and phase 2 done?
Yeah, I think it sort of depends on, you know, funding, but I think. Ideally, it could be like, this is year 1 and this is year 2. That might be a joke question, but. I think the looking at that budget too, I just wanna say that that's like a very generalization based on like. What I thought things could possibly cost if they were purchased, but knowing that a lot of how this is designed is that, that. Many of these things will be made as part of programming, I think that cost comes down. And we're also in like partnership with, community partners. Like Cascade Water Alliance, like, let's put a sister in there, like, we got funding for that, so being able to kind of, you know, that budget is a number to look at, but know that there's a lot of moving pieces and that it could look potentially much smaller too, or that budget feeds in and out from other things like programming.
For next steps, you all got the first look at this presentation. I'll be sharing it with the garden committee and then also meeting with Liliana and with Veronica. Let's get everything squared away. We'll come back with our proposal to get approved by the board, so we can start doing this work and figuring out like a more set in stone timeline. I also want to give credit to Tilt because they went through years worth of material from our garden committee, where we met with students, we met with admin, we met with community members. And this plan it's not made by Tilt, it's made by our students and by our garden committee. So I really want to like give credit to that. Everything that you see here was from our students, from our community, from people who participated. And it's like, it's really great. I'm not a gardener, but I love to see that our students' passions are coming through. So thanks, y'all.
Well, thank you, Jill, for listening to students.
Yeah, absolutely, I mean, it's their garden, so it doesn't really matter what I want to do, except for chemistry, but we're gonna talk about it.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now.
It's a disputed representative report.
Thank you.
Yeah, so not much has happened because end of the year, but I finished the mental health presentation, so the survey of the students that should be doing, running today. And then recently, well, today, I was part of panel on the SDE, the State Board of Education, Washington, for student. And then, yeah, we should be expecting a new juniors to represent very soon. Because if we got applications, then we'll be interviewing very soon.
I'm gonna be further on that. Speaking of, I'm wondering if, would you share just like a super quick overview of like the changes that y'all made to the student rep? Role?
Oh, yes, we were initially planning on having one junior store representative and then another alternate one, but I think we may have to save that for next application cycle. But basically now it's more of like a student scan. I don't have it on top of my head, but basically it's gonna be because we've had some problems with senior representatives kind of because it's getting busy and they kind of fall off at the end of the year, so there's more of an accountability factor, and if they would want to remove themselves from the decision, they could find a new student representative to replace them, because we would like to have to bring them with everyone if possible.
And, work to, I believe, make that a credit Right, or be, yeah, have a credit, yeah. So Dennis and has been working with Dr. Borche, to just kind of think about our student representative, process with asking the student representatives and, and Dennis, was really advocating hard that, there be some more accountability, as you just mentioned, and then one of the ways we thought we could do that is by actually, giving them credit for participating. So there are so many, when they're engaging, there are so many amazing skills, right? That they can learn and leverage. So, so just huge kudos to you, for your work on that. I know this is not the only, passion project you've been working on, but that's gonna, I think, make a big difference. So thank you for that. Okay. All right, so next is the superintendent report, which actually we from Dr. Borche.
Thank you. So just briefly, we have a Seneca update. We partnered with Seneca to explore culture and climate of all schools and the district. Seneca group has met with principals, individual staff, and groups of staff members to ask questions related to culture and climate. The aggregated data is going to be shared with Dr. Henry and myself tomorrow. We also have our CP data, which is in and has been shared with principals. Teaching and learning will be looking at that data in July to determine trends and next steps for individual principals and schools. In the study, I'll send this to you. Our list of data has been submitted and principals have been working with OSSI to submit for respective grants. So each of the elementary schools have received a specific amount of money based on where they are in the tier. And accreditation. In April of 2023, TSD participated in the campus review process, which included interviews of principals, staff, board member, community-based organization, district staff, and there was a site-based visit and an executive summary to capture the work being done in TSD. And as a result, just today, we received notification that TSD is a candidate for systems accreditation, which is going to be a lengthy process, but we are there, and that concludes the report.
Any questions?
That accreditation, you said it's a 1-year process, we're now a candidate for,
Yes.
and so the rest of the process is another year? or-
Another year.
Okay.
Yes. I'm curious about the work with Seneca. And so this was something that, the board more or less requested. So I just want to make sure that we are going to also get access to all of that information. I just want to make sure that we're getting the full scope of everything that is in there and not just select pieces. And then I know that that's coming with next steps as well, or I believe, that's what I'm just told, okay. And I guess are those next steps for 2024, or do we know yet?
Will be for 2023, 2024.
Okay, so you're getting that tomorrow. Can the board get that before our next meeting?
Is that also gonna come with? Who was a part of the conversation? What schools, what teachers, what?
It'll come with schools, but it won't identify staff.
No, but can you tell us like 3 teachers from this school?
Yes.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Okay.
All right. Okay. All right, so the board recruitment campaign, I actually don't have any updates just yet. For just a very brief context, so I won't get too much into it. We have a big work that has been open since last May. And we are now working alongside, partnering with the PSCSD that continues to give us an extension. So we have a current extension. Now I forgot. It's through the end.
End of June,
I gotta say it again.
okay.
Was it September? Was it?
I think it's there, sorry. So basically what's going to happen is PSCSD is going to work with us on a board recruitment campaign. And they were going to be, Dr. Welch is working on a project plan for that, that I know he was going to be bringing to the PCSD board, at their meeting this month. So I anticipate that I'll hear, from John in the next week or so, with some updates on that plan. Our hope is that we are, really implementing some recruitment efforts in July to hopefully get someone, on the ballot in the, special filing period in August. If that doesn't happen, we are still going to engage in recruitment efforts and then be able to appoint someone into that position. Which is why they continue to give us at least through, thanks for that, and at least through that special filing period in August, to find someone. And then assuming someone does file in that special period, and it's just one person, we will be able to pretty simply appoint that person, and they'll be able to start in this role early. If it ends up being multiple folks, we won't do that appointment, which, you know, that's the best case scenario, right? That we just have, a lot of folks really interested in. I think just one thing I just want to continue to name as much as I can is that, I recognize, like being like this, it's a lot to ask, right, for anyone to run for this position, right? It's not a simple task. It's things that I know I don't feel fully prepared to do the work of. And at the same time, like, I think we just want committed people, right, that are invested in the service of the district and invested in the young people that live here and go to school here. And, you know, I think we want to continue to figure out ways that we can make the role of being a school board director, at least in Tukwila, just more attainable for anyone that might want to serve in this capacity. And so if you're a person or you know someone that just has a great heart for kids, also a system mindset, also like wants to help with these things, but maybe they have some barriers, let connect them with me, connect them with another board member, because I think one of our biggest things over this time is to figure out what are the barriers for folks and how we can really just increase participation. Particularly folks that are really representative, of course, of our students. So that's what we have about board recruitment. We'll have more information. There's a lot of meeting with an actual, like, here's our timeline and here's what we're doing. So we are recruiting and we talk about it a lot. So I'll just go from there to my director of really quick. As you all know, at this point, we have appointed an interim superintendent for next school year, which is really exciting. And that, of course, has been some of the biggest bucket of work that I've been working on this last month. I also finally got to make it back to the safety and inclusion task force meetings that were taking place. I was really excited to get back engaged with that work. They have done some incredible just brainstorming and thinking about and are getting ready to push out some surveys, both to staff, to parents. They've got some listening sessions that they're working on scheduling for when school comes back. They're really, really, really excited and proud of the work that small but mighty group has done so far. And I really look forward to seeing kind of what comes out of that, particularly in partnership with things we're going to learn from Seneca, though it's different but related, and then things that we that Dennis had the opportunity to hear and see in response to student mental health. So lots of exciting stuff coming, but fairly slow month. Can I go back to the next?
Yes, mine will be very short because I've been on vacation. So that is my report.
I have next to report. I was sorry to miss graduation, but I'm here. Well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, graduation was interesting. I suppose I could collect a few numbers. I think we had 218 graduates, which is the most we've had in at least the last 5 or 6 years. So it's a very large class, which was great. And also, another number I liked was how many, it was at the senior award night, and this year's class, was won over $8 million in scholarships, which is a new record. We've never been over 6 million before. A lot of that is due to, I mean, as always, most of it is coming from the College Bound Scholarship, which is a state program. And this typically, classes about 50% of our students get the College Bound Scholarship. This year it was 63%.
Oh, that's great.
So the bigger class, more of them got the scholarship, which is attributed to particularly our counselors who, you know, a lot of that is about making sure that they fill out the FAFSA and get it in on time and all that kind of stuff. And so, you know, we've always, the district always done a good job of that. So, and then on top of that, the state has continued to, we have generally recognized as the best post-secondary education funding scholarship system in the country, actually. And that has improved. They keep, you know, kind of lower bar so that more students can get included in that. So, so anyway, that was great. We also had 40 students, which is also, students got a seal by literacy, which means they, you know, are proficient in not only English, but also other language as well. That's also up to our, we used to have like 41, 42, and then the pandemic it kind of went down, so we're back up to where it was before the pandemic. So it was a really good graduating class, I think, and hopefully they'll all do really well. And the thing that I always like about the fact that they get so much scholarship money is that means hopefully they won't have so much debt. They'll be able to get whatever their post-secondary experience is without accumulating a lot of debt, which is really a big advantage these days. I also went up to teacher Aragon's class of the Cascade View, the history class of the Cascade View did an exercise in designing their dream school, what it would look like. So they got a little CTE work in how to be an architect. I asked some of them if they knew what town that was, that to draw these pictures, and then most of them didn't know it, but anyway, they're being little architects. And it was interesting, all the things that they would include in their school. One of them, of course, was a lot of the very popular was gardens for their food, so that's a good thing. The prayer rooms are very popular. It's interesting when they drew the pictures, they drew them on grids, 40 grids. So the other part of this was learning the mathematics of a grid, X, Y grid. They all need to know how to do that, and they could tell me about that. Was also that the classrooms were actually very small. And they had a big garden, a big gym, a big pool, a big. Yeah. Saying. So I asked them, do you think that'd be a little crowded to be in this? So anyway, it was a really good exercise, and they, you know, we were all pretty excited about the ideas that they had put together. So hopefully when, I don't know, there's time where I think Cascade View should be probably on the list for a bond in maybe 5 or 6 years. I told the Aragon to keep them all and, you know, pull them out for the architects. To look at redesign the school. The other thing was kind of interesting. I was today at noon, I was watching on the Educational Clinic with the Seattle Times put on a webinar actually about state funding. It's getting a lot of publicity now because so many districts are running into financial problems and they're having to cut programs, cut staff as we have as well. So there's a lot of awareness. Seattle Times Education Battle reporters are all over that particular issue and publishing lots of articles. And the League of Education Voters is actually having a webinar again tomorrow on a very same subject. So the good news is that there's a lot of attention being paid to education funding, and one of the people on the Seattle Times thing was David Knight, who's a professor I'm working with at the University of Washington, and he was harping on the equity aspects of or the lack of equity aspects in the current funding system. So anyway, it's good to see that that's getting more and more attention, hopefully next year, maybe the legislature will start getting serious about that, so. That's it for me.
I also attended the band concert. It was great. Cody did another great job.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone. All right, so now we'll move to, through our consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, so we have two items for board discussion, and one is the social media litigation, and then the other is the comprehensive school counseling plan, which we also have, one of our fabulous counselors here to join us in that conversation. Okay, great, and so we'll just kind of start with the social media litigation. So this is put on here, I was hoping actually Dr. Herman would be here to provide some more context, but he sent us some of that info in the memo.
I think what he wanted is based on the memo he sent, for the board to start discussion if they were moving forward, meeting for time.
Yeah.
I don't know, our new administrator, Seattle's already in there, so she may have more information than, yeah.
Yeah, just what I can speak to is that several school districts have joined in, as you all know, it's been reported in the paper. I don't know exactly where Triple is in terms of your decision, in terms of joining.
We have.
Yeah, so it is down, so at the beginning, it stemmed from the fact that, as we know, that we had many issues with some of the substances, and that because of the impact on wellness, that it was important that that we figure out a way that we can recoup funds to actually support our students who might need counseling, who might need substance abuse counseling, all of those things that impact student learning. And so that was the intent of the litigation. And so now it's giving some traction, and there's lots of districts actually joining in with that. So that's the basic for people who don't know about it, but it's also been reported pretty heavily in the news. And so so if there's that's what I can speak to, not from my view.
I mean, I think, so last board meeting, we received we read through like a resolution. But then it was understood that, I think it was understanding that we would just need to like sign on this resolution. But then now it sounds like we would need to like really like engage as an individual district in the process. And so I think that my initial thought was, of course, we should join this, because but at the same time, that kind of gave me a little bit of pause, just thinking about, do we have the capacity to do that from just a staffing standpoint, from a financial standpoint, and I mean, obviously, I think, there's likely potential for as you said, a recoup of costs, but
My understanding also is that the resolution was more geared toward engaging with the attorney, right?
originally it seemed like it was I think it was a misunderstanding about what the original resolution was, yes, which is why, yes.
Question, are there not two, so the one we're talking here is against the social media companies, Meta, Facebook?
Yeah.
You're talking about, there's another one.
This Jewel one, so you're talking about the.
Yeah.
There's that one too, yeah.
Okay, so,
There's two separate ones, there's Jewel,
yeah,
and then there's the social media.
Joel like the vape.
they, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, so there's two.
So this one, the social media one, so first of all, it's on a contingency basis, so it's been the process in the.
Yeah, it doesn't cost you anything.
Legal fees. The only thing they do say is our certification staff involved in this matter will not exceed 10 hours. The staff time would include responding to written questions from the defendants and limited document production. So, that's what the attorney firm is saying. My question a little bit is, okay, what if it turns out to be more than that for some reason? I'm not sure how that.
or even if it's on a contingency basis, what happens if we end up having to pay out almost what we get, right, and then.
No, contingency basis means only,
Only pay
we get paid, like,
percent.
and the attorneys get paid only if they win.
Right.
Yeah.
But if. Yeah, so I guess then what would that be, I guess the first percentage of the settlement, is that what you're saying? So the attorneys get paid a percentage of the settlement.
Yes,
So
So-
it sounds like we can have, conversation sometime soon.
Is there a timeline when we needed to decide on this?
Yeah, I didn't see the report from Claire, but, I can definitely get information for you all to find out. I can do that. I actually happen to know the lawyer that's working on it. I can do that for you. I'll call her.
on speed dial.
I'll call her.
I mean, my other question
That's
is,
just a social media one, just one.
Yes.
yeah, the social media one, yeah. My other question is, so if we didn't do this, we would, so this is what they call a mass action as opposed to a fast action, but we would miss out on potentially getting some money to cover some, mental health, issues, which we certainly could use that money. On the other hand, my only concern is, I want to make sure that we're not gonna commit to having to spend any staff time more than 10 hours. Yeah, I don't know.
Fine, I'll talk to Greg.
Yeah.
Give you guys some information.
And I don't know what I mean, obviously, this attorneys for society it's worth doing, they wouldn't do it if they didn't think there was a reasonable case that their money's on the line, so. I could see us doing it, but I mean, make sure we have side bars on how to, get into it.
Can I get a copy of, can you send me also the copy of the report?
Yes.
So can you, that'd be great. So then I can send that to Rudy and I'll call it. That'd be all.
Yeah, Francis Law Group,
Okay.
yes, okay.
Thank you. I'll do that. There should be so fast.
Okay, it's comprehensive school counseling for them.
And that's why I find out that Brian Craig is also joining through soon, so.
Yes.
So I just want to start off by saying thank you all so much for working so diligently on making sure that this happened, because in 2021, legislators passed the Senate Bill 5030, which required that all districts have a comprehensive school plan by 2022. And we were able to get ours done finally in 2023. And so I am going to turn it over to the counselors to give a high level overview in response to any questions that we have. Any questions?
Answer question. I don't know if we have the opportunity to read through it, or I'm super excited that the state finally moved to do this, because it seems through the years that I've been in school council, like always advocating for a role, like, well, this is what school councils do, this is what school councils do. And especially nowadays with COVID and everything, that gets really crucial that when our association went the route of like really aligning what our job, means to every district and coming up with a plan for the whole school. So I was really excited to join a lot of people that are here today to be part of that, team to write down and come up with all kinds of ideas based on what the state is asking us to do. And again, this is a framework that we're gonna work with. A lot of the stuff we found out we were already doing. But it's now putting it all in one piece all together and then obviously in the end, coming up with reports like, hey, this is what we found out, this is what worked, this is what we want to do differently and so forth. So I'm just super excited. Again, Brian and I are here. Did we have any questions about it?
Yeah, I don't know, did you make this picture?
Brian, actually.
Oh, Brian, good, yeah. I appreciate it though, because I always, we always get these kind of silo presentations and how does it fit into the big picture. So the way I'm interpreting this is the counselors are going to be, part of a lot of these different efforts that are already going on, and have been, and so that helps me to kind of place this in the big picture. This isn't something it's totally different from what we're doing. It's kind of organizing what we're doing a little bit and keeping it. So that's very helpful. So thanks, Brian.
You're welcome. And I can't take total credit for that. It actually started with an image that actually is from Hatching Results, which is sort of a nationwide advocacy school counselor leadership organization. So yeah, I have to give credit for them. I just embellished it with more local information, more local on the ground info.
Yeah, that's the one other one that I didn't see on here was we have attendance teams. So I don't know if you guys, I see participation in care teams, sub team, EWS teams, but there's also, we have the attendance teams, which are 280%. I assume you're involved in those.
Oh, yeah. So,
Yeah,
so the way, the Hatchings results, which is, they're the ones working with the state, they have the MTSS team.
yeah,
Which is attendance is part of it.
okay,
So the goal of these teams is like, you focus, if the district goal is like, hey, let's improve attendance. That's what it was, because that's what we did, and at least at Foster, we focus on, okay, let's raise attendance.
right,
How are we gonna do that? Focus on grades, and so a lot of that work comes out of that, and recommendations are made, so yeah, that is part of the MTSS team.
okay, good.
Correct.
Yes,
And I was
it
just
is.
going to say that the EWS team that we have at Showalter looks at attendance data. It's a component of what we're looking at in terms of students of concern. And EWS, just so everyone knows, means early warning indicator system.
Yeah. The other one I was interested in added strategies, so are there particular, so for your tier one students, is that just kind of any particular added strategies or just the whole set?
It's some of them like note taking,
Yeah,
organization
yeah.
skill, time management.
Yeah,
And that is all done through advisory. At the high school, we have 2 counselors are the lead of advisory. So a lot of that college and career goes through advisory. And Brian can speak to this. I believe some of that goes through the middle school. So by utilizing some of those strategies, kind of like school-wide, even though we're not recognized as school-wide, but we borrow a lot of those strategies, have it in other programs.
okay,
Correct. Yeah, Jorge said it really well. At the middle school, we do a school-wide binder. In fact, what we usually tell kids what they need, at least for their school supplies, is an Avid binder. So we try to teach the Avid binder strategy on a school-wide basis.
Do you guys check in the students and see that they're utilizing the binder?
Brian, did you hear that?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
I was wondering if you guys check in with students after you give out the binder, do you check in to see that they're utilizing the binder to like candidate and do the skills that you guys are teaching them?
Yeah, typically it's the homeroom teacher works with the student doing like binder checks and things like that. And we, at least at the middle school, we developed a rubric that students can self-assess. And then their homeroom teacher will come around and check in with them to see, how they're doing. Avid takes us a step further. They do shake tests in Avid. So I have the students take up their binder and shake it just to make sure things don't fall out.
Yeah.
Is there a hope that kind of as a part of this, there will get some more consistent alignment of what's happening at the 3 elementary schools?
That is definitely one of the goals.
Okay. Okay.
Because you think at least at the high school, there's more of us, we're always consulting and, hey, let's get out of this. Same thing with the middle school, but the elementaries, they're it, So yes, the hope of this is through, our human services team looking at this more with fidelity and really coming up with some really cool ideas and see what we need to. There may be some asks.
So it will uncover what we're doing, and then it will give us information on what we need to do, differently or keep.
How does this feel with your regular work life? It feels like this, this is another component that we're putting on top.
So the goal obviously is to shift and make sure that they are doing the work that they have been hired to do versus all of those other things. So this is going to help narrow the work.
And who's picking up all those other things?
That's a very good point. Because we actually, we had that conversation with the Hatchins results. It's like, hey, we have some questions. And they said it takes time, and it's something, again, it's where the districts have to look at this. You have people that are trained to do this job. How do you want to use them? and where is the need?
Right.
So by coming up with this plan, to me, it's not overwhelming. It's actually, like I said, at the beginning, I'm excited because it's all in one place. Yes, 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 yes. It's all in one place and you know, which is the gradual work. And that's where we're like, probably gonna come back. Okay, this is the stuff that, you know, I'm finding myself that it's like, even at the school, right? I was doing for the years, you know, college board testing and implementing this. And just last week I was training or building assessment coordinator. Okay, now you're gonna do it. This is how you do it. I'm here to help you out. That's the work that we want, because then that releases us from that work to actually go in and check in with those students, to try to sit together, work together to implement plans for college and career, social, emotional, you know, and all that. Otherwise, it does take a lot of our time. So, yeah. I'm excited, and I don't, it's nothing, that it is a lot of work that we were already doing. It's just organizing it.
So then that kind of begs the question, does the organization have the capacity to take over those things that you used to be doing, that you should have been doing? Now get shifted because somebody who,
Yeah, and that is what we will be working through.
okay.
Like you said, this is a framework.
Yeah.
I feel like there's one required by state law, so. Really?
State law.
Well, the feedback to legislators needs to be, okay, that's nice, but you just shifted a bunch of work to
Yeah.
staff that we, oh, by the way, we don't have that staff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I think particularly on that note is like, you know, are they really thinking about the impact that it has on a smaller system? Right, it's one thing to implement something like this in a larger system that has more staff capacity to be able to move the ship, but in a system like ours, we don't really have the people power to do that.
And that's what I'd like to hear from the principals, because they're the ones who are having.
Yeah, they're the ones, yeah.
Shifting this around, if they're saying, oops, there's nobody.
Then who's gonna do it, right? And all that, those are really good questions. And what we learned last week, what they had to do, so like, yeah, that's something that your principals and then building administrators need to be aware and really work with this team to figure those things out.
Do you feel like in this last year, that there's a lot of work that should go elsewhere? I mean, I see one of these templates is kind of whatever, 15 minutes, 9 pages or something. Is it, I know, definitely, I mean, years past, there's a lot of work that you guys were doing that wasn't really aligned. Is it better now? Or-
It is better, and I would say having the fourth
Yeah.
comprehensive council really made a difference.
Yeah,
Because honestly, like I said, I've been doing this is, I guess, my 23rd year, and Brian can speak to that, he's been here for a long time too. I don't know if it would be sustainable for any more years till I retire, honestly. I'm like, I don't know if I could keep doing this. And you can ask any of the counselors, it's like in the past 6-7 years, there's been a shift. Mental health, a lot of it.
Mhm.
And many times, honestly, we don't have the community resources, even when we send out the referrals. I mean, we got to school in November and they told us, don't send any referrals for mental health because we don't have the capacity.
Mhm.
Where do we send them?
right.
Sometimes we're the social workers and school counselors, we're it. They have some type of a training, but we're not mental health, providers. So those are the things that we're running into. So a lot of it, like, do the check-ins with the students, coming in with the tier 1 supports with the mindfulness, social emotional, when some of us work with Ruler to funnel all that in, with Forefront. I mean, I think we had over 30 referrals, or, not referrals, but suicidal ideation students, and some that were actually hospitalized, many of them, more than in the years that I've been here.
Kevin,
So-
rough about how much of your time you spend doing stuff that would be outside of.
Right now, I would say it's gone better over
Yeah,
the years. You would ask me like,
yeah, right.
oh yeah, I was like, oh gosh, no, I would say probably, well, this year was a little different because we also had a new register, and new secretary, so we're doing. I was kind of a lot of teaching and also
Yeah.
teaching our new counselor that even though she was college and career, but doing the stuff that we're doing was
Right.
different for her. So I spent a lot of time with NWRDC, which is their student database system support, a lot of time doing that, so I would say a good out of the hours that we spend, maybe an hour, 30 minutes. Sometimes more, sometimes less, and sometimes we didn't.
per month, or
Per day.
per day. Oh,
Yeah, with other stuff,
other stuff, okay.
it could potentially be done by somebody else.
Yeah.
And I would say my experience comports pretty well with Jorge. I will admit though that at the high school level, there's an awful lot more of tracking that needs to happen, obviously with graduation credits, you know, and just making sure kids are on time for graduation. So that sometimes adds a layer of tasks that we don't have at the middle and the elementary school. So, but you know, I'm also had the experience of working closely with our registrar this year. And she's been able to, I've been working together, build her capacity to be able to take on stuff that myself and then Julie, my former counterpart, who's since changed district, used to do, particularly around like master scheduling. So we've been helping build capacity for her to be able to do that. And actually, it's been really great. We're a great team.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, just putting this out there, I know this is a very robust agenda, so thanks for bearing with us. And some of these just really felt like they needed to be more engaging presentations than just a questions only, so thanks, that was a little bit of a longer meeting. All right, so now we're to our questions only presentations, so just kind of go down the list. Questions, comments on the financial forecast.
Nope.
I have a kind of a general comment just about, kind of overarching. And hopefully this is an okay comment to me. I think there's just a lot of concern for me, about our financial health. And you know, as we see and approve these vouchers that are coming through, it feels like we are just spending. And we find ourselves continuously in this 1%, the fund balance, and I guess I just wonder what steps are we taking? Have we been taking in the last 6-8 months when the board's been asking to start moving our district to better financial health? I think all of that kind of again is in partnership with the fact that we're being asked to approve another interfund loan. And we're still continuing to sign contracts with programs. I'm concerned, and I'm not really sure how we course correct, and what I guess has been what has been being done to course correct, and what do we need to do from here on out to really start to get ourselves in a better financial health.
I appreciate the comment. So the vouchers for this particular month, absolutely, they are pretty high for a couple of reasons. One of the main reasons is trying to catch up on outstanding invoices. We have been going through purchase orders and kind of seeing what is left outstanding, right? So every month, my team and teaching and learning, we look at our grants, right? So we say, hey, at this point, how much of our grant is left? How come this grant's not being spent? What is happening? What is the projection of during this time frame? Or we will get like, a statement and say, hey, you're, I don't know, let's say 30 days past due. Hey, what's happening? What is the breakdown? And what we found is that there was a breakdown between invoices being processed in a timely manner. So what you see in the last couple of months is a compilation of past due invoices, which make the lift that much heavier. Now, for the most part, people will say, well, that's okay. Like you should, if you did not spend it in the prior months, you should have that money in your ending fund balance to pay for it. Yes and no. The problem is that we're already dealing with a low fund balance. The second piece is that the majority of those invoices are grant funded, meaning if we paid it in a timely manner, we will get reimbursed in a timely manner versus taking a $600,000 hit in 1 month and waiting for a $600,000 payment versus 150, 75. So we find ourselves catching up on the bills. So that's the piece for the vouchers. The 1%, absolutely. I look at it every day and I'm just like, this is rough, right? So I appreciate that piece.
Some of us can remember a couple years ago, though, when it was projected like a -4. So
Yeah,
this does not look good, but it doesn't look as bad as what was projected.
that is true. Our goal, if any projection is looking negative, the goal is to work backwards to make sure that it is not negative.
That's good context though, because I'm not, I wasn't here, so I didn't see
Yeah.
that.
And the other piece, I know we'll talk about it later, but the interfund loan is part of that, right? So there's a couple pieces. It is the increase in spending for catching up on past due balances. It is the payment of national board, which is close to 400,000 and some change. Plus you have the increase in your taxes that go with that. So that's another 200,000. Then you have stipends, which is 75,000. I have all these numbers in my head. So then it leaves you with this variance, right? So the good thing about the interfund loan is two things. I have a lot of two things, right? Is that when we get our apportionment payment at the end of July, we get 12.5% of apportionment, which is a good chunk of money. In April, we get 5%. No, April we get 9, May we get 5, June we get 6%. We normally get about 9%, but because we get property taxes in April, the state cut our percentage for those 2 months, so we get 12.5, meaning that we get a higher amount of our apportionment in April, in July. We also get our reimbursement for national boards. So we will, and then for the most part, a lot of those expenditures that were increased, the increase to the expenditures, the majority of those will be reimbursed because a lot of them were grant funded, meaning that the $800,000, more than likely we end up being about maybe 200-ish, as far as a deficit, right? So we'll have a good chunk of that covering that $800,000 ask. And that's why I can confidently say we can pay it back August 1st after we get our apportionment versus pushing it out until the end of August. Because again, to your point, we do have another $800,000 that we asked for in the month of February.
I have two curiosities in response to that. So it sounds like, so that was a reasonable explanation, I think, as to why, like, we're in this position, right, with the vouchers and all those things, and then the flip loan. And we still have like some discussions, right, to do about how we continue to invest and get us into more sustainable long-term financial health.
Yes.
Okay, and then the other question is, are there any grants that due to the reporting timelines, we will not get reimbursement for because we missed the reporting deadline or fill in the blank?
No, not at this moment. We work really hard to make sure that we meet our grant deadlines as well as expenditures. For the most part, some of our grants, like let's say, outdoor education. Let's say the grant is June 30th, right? Have a conversation and say, hey, wait before June. Hey, where are we at with this? What does that look like? And we still have an additional couple of months to claim those funds. So I know that some people, they're like, hey, we have to do, and it's like, it is the objection, what's the word I'm looking for?
Objective.
The objective, thank you, is to have the funds already used by then, the services rendered, the items entered, even though you have a couple months to then, yes. And some of the grants are odd because again, state of Washington, I don't know why we are this way, but a lot of the grants run on a July 1 through June 30th. And so there's a whole history behind that. They couldn't meet their bills way back in some year. And so they literally did a whole shifting. So that's a whole nother history lesson. But that's another piece to that.
But that's the difference between the state fiscal year and school district fiscal year, which are different. And
Correct. And a lot of the grants are
Yeah.
the state people.
Yeah.
So do we have a report on which grants have been utilized and spent?
Yes, that is actually that's usually part of the budget status report, usually roughly about page 10, usually talks about what we have, what we spent, and what we encumbered, and roughly what is left to spend.
Thank you.
And don't be alarmed, some of those may be at like 103%. But usually I go through it and make sure that those are right size before the end of the year.
So do you feel confident that you've been able to take care of whatever caused those invoices to not get paid on time or whatever it is?
Absolutely, it is a team effort and we have a huge team and we got it.
All right.
We have
Good
it.
job.
We have it.
Hopefully putting some systems in place to be able to support that. And I mean, again, so I guess it's catching up and it's a good burden, right, on everyone.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I think talking, Dr. Willis, I was talking about in past years, a lot of times, you know, we get the fund balance out toward the end of the year and during the year.
Mhm.
The one big thing or one of the big things that has changed recently was when they clamped down, when they made our local levy dollars solely dependent on number of students. A long time ago, it used to be a little bit of need-based aspects to it, and communities could vote, you know, higher amounts and so forth, but when they put that limit of $2,500 per student, that hurts us quite a bit, and particularly since this year, when we, at the beginning of the year, you know, our students was going down, we now look like we kind of bottomed and are starting to go up, but that's just, as you say, it's a little tiny bit at the end of the year.
Yep.
And so, you know, it's another way that the state funding system has messed up over. And so that's why it's, in the past, we could make up some of that, but now we're having a tougher time doing that. So, yeah, it's next year's budget discussion, you know, is gonna be, where we're gonna have to make some, you know, some changes that are gonna hold us. Hopefully, we bottomed out that, you know, enrollment, but, you know, we can't count on that.
Right.
So on this grant that we haven't used much of, will we be using? Those funds,
I'm sorry, ask me that question again.
the grants that we have 0% usage of, are we going to be? Because like I think it's a heritage one.
Mhm. Yes, we have some expenses, they just haven't came through yet.
Oh.
And I want to say that depending on which one it is, it may be part of a 2-year grant. So we may have another year to spend it, but
Oh, I see, okay,
yes, we do have some expenditures.
because I think I've seen more that we use them in a more healthy way.
In
Yeah,
other areas.
yeah, thank you.
So that was the budget status report and the quarterly grant report. Is that all the questions? Lynn? No, are we done with that?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
So we skipped the till, good, we did that. Now we're down to Dennis's report.
No, not me.
No, it's just you.
We're gonna wait for Madam President and we're going to be in.
This lunch. Thank you. So. Great. Yeah.
Representative Davis and I had an opportunity to collaborate on our mental health presentation. And one of the things that we decided to do was to solicit student voice in a way that will help inform some next steps as relates to mental health. So first thing we did was we wanted to define mental health. Mental health includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It affects how we think, how we feel, how we act, and helps us to determine how we handle stress, relate to others, and make choices. Mental health is important at every stage of life, from childhood and adolescence all the way through adulthood. What we did was we interviewed or had conversations with the elementary students, and then with the middle school students, we used some information that they were already doing at the middle school level. And then at the high school, Dennis had an opportunity to interview some students there. Overall, there were some questions that we asked at the elementary level. 3rd through 5th there were 124 elementary students who participated. And the questions that we asked are, when you're feeling sad, who do you talk to? How often do you talk to this person? How does this person help you? Is that person here in school? And what will you do if that person, what will you do this summer if that person is here in school? Because we wanted to make sure that we provided them with some resources if the person was in school. And then as you go through, you will see the results of what our students shared. Who do you talk to when you're feeling sad? Students said teachers, principal, counsel or social worker, others. And what I wanted to just share is that many of our third graders said they talk to their teachers. The fourth and fifth graders said they talk with others. And others include parents, best friend, and even pets.
Oh, that's happened fast. Question, were these weren't multiple choice, right? So these were based on conversations, or were they multiple choice?
This was based on conversations and then surveys, so we were sending, I'm sending it.
Someone wants to speak.
The next question was, how often do you talk to another person when you're sad? And so as Dennis and I went through the information, it was either none. Sometimes they talk, they shared that they didn't have anyone to talk to. That was real touching. Touching in a sad way that they felt like they didn't have anyone to talk to. Sometimes they talk to the person once. Sometimes they talk to the person daily, and that was, I talk to my teacher every day. Or I talk to my mom every day, or I talk to my friend, my best friend every day. And sometimes they talk to somebody as needed. The other one was, how does this person help you? It was shared that sometimes they use the calm down corner. Sometimes this person will hug them, or sometimes they would just be there to talk and listen and give them some encouragement or inspiration. The other question, is this person in school? And a lot of times they say, yes, this person is in school, and then in some cases, they say, no, the person isn't in school. What will you do if this person, what will you do this summer if this trusted person is at school? Like you said, they said sleep. Talk or text a friend. Some people said, I don't know. Some people said they would. Some students said, I would engage in summer activities. A lot of students said that they're going to talk to their family, play with their pet, or calm themselves down. And some of the summer activities included swimming, playing games. And the latest thing is TikTok.
Is this supposed to say if your trust person is not in school?
It's not in school.
Oh.
No, if your trusted person is here in school, so what?
Oh, what you do in the summer when you're not at school
With that person.
and that person is, got it.
Yes. And then we, any questions so far from that? No. Okay. This is really fun talking with our babies. And then, we use information that Mr. Greg has already been, doing at the middle school, which is the ESPER, the Grief Intervention and Referral, to uncover needs. And some of the things that was shared or revealed is that, first of all, out of all of the students there at the middle school, Mr. Greg and his team, there's a heavy lift. We learned some things in terms of having a program manager to help with this grant and this work. Continue working with students to understand the impact of vaping. And then rethinking how bullying and harassment education is done school-wide, and rethinking cell instruction for school-wide understanding and provide more mental health awareness. Some considerations for next steps. You will see that there are mental health resources. So at the end of the school year, one of the things that was done at the elementary was giving them a hand copy of the resources that are on our webpage, so that they could take it home and give it to parents and utilize the resources if there was a need for the resources. And it was, I would say, the elementary, the staff was very excited about receiving the resources to take home as a as a result of the information that we learned from the student survey and interaction with the students. And then from there, Student Representative Dennis interviewed, along with some friends, 52 high school students, and I'll turn it over to him.
Yes, so we asked them in like a group setting question, and then we used for some questions, so what do you think is missing based on the current services offered, and it'll show that in the later slide. Do you have access to these services? What, if anything, is stopping you from getting help when needed? How do you know how to access these services during the summer? And what do you think is missing that you want to see differently when you get back to school, generally around mental health? And we give credit to Joanne because she helped me with collecting the data. We have gotten 52, which is a lot talking to a group of high schoolers. So next slide. So that is a screenshot of the Tooele School District website, the mental health resources section. So basically, we have the crisis resources on the top, and then below that, there is subsections of specific topics that you could click on. And then there's more information. And then below that, next slide is just an example, say the anxiety section. Some of the supports available, and then depending on the subject, there is information from educational info into more resources that students can reach out for help. And so when I asked the first question, I showed them the website and asked for their opinion of what they thought was missing. So for the first question, they found that some of the sexual health, sexual violence and harassment, bullying, LGBTQ were missing more information, and even though those were listed on the website, some of the things that were missing were like more information on how to cultivate these resources, not just because some of the ones like LGBTQ, I think there is just some links. As opposed to they wanted some more educational information that they could look at and just know how to deal with things. And then there's a big emphasis on like more bullying materials, or more awareness and just more information on that website. They wanted more suicide specific hotlines and more information on suicide. And then there's a few people who stated counseling services for specific populations like immigrants and students of color. And then there's, oh yeah.
I'm sorry, I just pulled up the resources.
Yeah.
I was like,
There's
you're
like-
right, these
there's
are.
four links.
these are-
Yeah. So, yeah, and some, just generally some more education on different topics, but some of the things students mentioned that were concerns were like the lack of lack of mention about informed consent, what mandated reporting is. And that the services should understand students are coping with family and personal issues. And they just wanted more general information for all of the resources in general. And some students probably did not contribute anything missing, but they noted that they did not know of the resources on the website. And then we can see more data in the next slide. These we asked 2 questions in the next slide. Thank you. So one was, do you have access to the current services? And 75% of students said yes. And then the next one was, do you have access to these services during the summer? Less so, 37% said yes. For the first question, of all the students that replied, none of them said they knew that these resources existed. I can understand why, given it's on the website and it's not really promoted at all. So yeah, that's just, it's not really promoted at all. So the students don't know about it until I came to show the website. And for the second question, of those who said no, an overwhelming majority of them said that they would not use the resources available. When I asked them why, one of the responses were around not feeling safe with these resources, and I think just that one, they did not know, and 2, they don't feel familiar with these resources, and 3, also, students did not feel comfortable with just reaching out to random phone number or just a random contact. Which was, which is understandable given they're just websites on the internet. So it's also suggested more advertising of these resources. And then the next one is what is stopping you from getting out? Majority, like broken down to sections, but majority of students said they did not want to reach out due to general lack of trust, whether that be. Lack of knowledge in mental health, because they said that it was not being talked about enough in school. They're scared that their family will find out, so that's another concern about mandated reporting. They don't feel like they have trust with their counselors, they don't have trust with the school system. And when asked why, they said that it's because they do feel like they're related to the counselors. And they don't feel supported with reaching out. And then there were some people who said past negative experiences of themselves who, when they've gone to a counselor and they did not feel supported emotionally, or from friends who had negative experiences. And there's some that they also don't find it helpful after, reaching out to a counselor. And yeah, they fear getting out, which is, there seems to be a general lack of information about what gets out, what gets in. It just mandated reporting, if you tell someone around about suicide ideation or self-harm, there's not currently, to my knowledge, students that there's not a lot of information on that, like what will get out and what will not. So there's just needs to be more communication and more transparency in that aspect. Yeah, so lack of the knowledge of the resources, because there's no advertisement about them. And some students just don't feel comfortable talking to an adult in school. Some just don't think they need help, and they feel like they can work out their issues by themselves. And then the last question we asked was generally, what do you want to see differently about mental health? So majority of students said they say something around, more conversation happening around mental health, so that more focus on the education and more knowledge part of it. They generally wanted more education and more promotion, so using things like advisory classes, assemblies, things like that, to have more conversations around mental health. And then a student suggested mental health workshops. So, definition of mental health, how do we take care of mental health? And more promotion of mental health resources. And more transparency with counselors on confidentiality and how students' mental health is dealt with. Yeah, and I think there was one student who said they did not feel supported after reaching out, getting bridged or connected to a mental health service. I think like a professional mental health provider, like a therapist. They did not feel supported by that therapist, and they did not know how to find a new one because they felt like they were kind of stuck with that one. And some of them also, there was one who reached out and they did get a counselor, like a mental health professional, but they felt like it was kind of brought up on them, ambushed because they did not anticipate having to talk to someone else about this issue repeatedly, because it was started happening. Staffing related, students wanted more counselors with similar experiences that students can relate to, like life experience, culture, demographically. And all that was, they wanted counselors to get more training on providing mental health support, though I understand, again, counselors are not mental health professionals, but students wanted these counselors to have a little bit more information on how to deal with supporting a student going through, a mental health crisis like suicide ideation or self-harm. And then telling staff members to promote resources to help students to get help and have a trusted adult contact for students on file. And then the next one. So just general mental health suggestions. I'm applying mental health awareness through actions, not words. So that's more, more of the workshops and also promoting those resources and making sure that students feel supported when they're reaching out. And then the mental health training for staff members, especially counselors. And then someone mentioned free confidential telehealth. I don't know, Dr. Borges, did that go through or?
We talked about it when we want to have a call.
Okay. Yeah. There's contact with an organization we'll figure that out because of costs and everything. If, and then someone said they want students to be able to take, you know, the day off for mental health because teachers can, so why can't students? And then, yeah, so they just wanted to get off without it.
Mental health.
Arguably, I'm gonna argue that they meant it for me. And then students wanted a safe place to calm down, to feel like the relaxation corner. And then someone brought up a form that Classroom School uses, I think that gave students their advisory, checking with their academics. And some students felt that the form doesn't focus as much on mental health, but only how the student is performing academically. So that not necessarily it doesn't bring down their mood, but it just felt like to them, the school wasn't really interested in listening to how they were feeling as a person as opposed to just the academics. And then one was teachers would come together to coordinate tests, just so that it doesn't follow the students. So then I have a letter that we're gonna be sending this summer to families.
Thank you.
Just,
Oh, you need that translated. Really fabulous work. I am just super appreciative of the time taken to really get input from the elementary school, people. We don't do that as often as we should. And hearing about 124 for fifth graders is pretty awesome. And like, they have a lot to say, right? And a lot of insight. And I think a lot of ways to really help us think about how we can improve their experience. And so I'm really glad that y'all really center those voices in that way. I hope that these things, and I think I heard a lot of themes in the Foster High School responses of how we really move from like, checking a box around what we say we're doing or talking and actually like moving towards some action. I hope that this can be kind of a consistent practice moving forward. And then I look forward to really seeing like what teaching and learning the rest of us do with this information. Particularly, I think there are a few really low hanging fruit of recommendations that some of the students have that we could certainly do. One really simple one came to mind. I don't know if this will help necessarily, but who goes to the website? So what student goes to the website? Probably very few. But if we had QR codes that are like mental health crisis, ? Go to this website. QR code brings you right to our website with those resources that can be posted all around the school. Right, so like little bitty things that are building through that I think just continue to raise awareness that we have an opportunity to do based on this. Thank you.
Kind of curious, what's the state of advisory these days in terms of, it sounds like there's no mental health awareness discussed at all in advisory, is that generally true or?
I don't know about it at all, but it sounds to me like it's very
No,
few
no.
and also. As we know, so we don't have a lot of attendance during the advisory.
And I'm a teacher. I think it'd be interesting, I know I shared this a little bit last year when I was really thinking about what is our role as an educational entity to really lead into the challenges of mental health. I mean, I think of course we have a role, and I think it could be really beneficial for us to really think about what is our role as an educational system in doing that, and then being clear about communicating that with students and families and ourselves, so that we don't put undue pressure on our counselors to do something that they're not, it's not your role, right? You are not a mental health professional. And same with our teachers, and I also think, the whole field of mental health, I'm not sure if I shared before, but I think it's an interesting thing. I was listening to this podcast one time where they were talking about really the kind of the foundation of the mental health field, and the reason why it now exists is because we've lost the interpersonal connection that we need to actually heal, right? And so this mental health services is just a relationship, right? It's a relationship with another person that you can say all that you pay for, that you can say all the things you need to say to, that they're gonna be listening, maybe they'll say, share that, like, but it's just a relationship, right? So how can we figure out, one, how to talk about them with students, so that, one, they're not coming to their counselors expecting for them to no longer like, if they're going and saying, I feel depressed, they're not gonna walk out not feeling depressed, right? It also takes individual, it takes everybody, right, to figure out how we really move forward the mental health challenges of this time. So I think that could be an interesting, just high level comprehensive conversation for us to have as a district. What is our stance on how we're going to support young people and their mental health, and what can we do and what are we not going to do, and how are we going to make sure that we're effectively communicating that so folks know what to expect.
And how do we model it
And yeah,
at every level?
and that young people have an opportunity to take a mental health day from school as a way of doing that, right? Again, I think that's kind of low hanging fruit. I don't know how that would work with like truancy and attendance and all that stuff, but I feel like we create a policy around that, right?
I think our companies are still making counseling plans to make it also fit, yeah, that's in that space.
Yeah, I really see like this, kind of this work and that work, and then what will hopefully come out of this age and inclusion task force really all kind of working together to really say, this is how we're supporting the needs of our students. Thank you.
Good job.
Thanks so much. Okay, one more presentation to go, and we will breeze through the action items, I'm certain. All right, budget presentation.
Don't worry, mine's fast.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. Thank you.
So I'm totally confused as to why it says Dothan Historical School District Board of Directors.
Where's that say?
On the first page, on the first one, or
Oh, yeah.
Does
I mean, did you steal this from someone?
Yeah, it might have been a little
No,
bit
the
of
next-
plagiarism, but I did source my site.
Next
Cite my
page.
source. That's my source.
It's next page in
Oh, is it the WAC?
the budget process, yeah. Within the structure of the study.
Yeah, I was looking at the WAC and RCW, sorry, but I cited my source. It's still legit though. Probably should have seen that. Yeah, based on those RCWs and WAC, that's absolutely the budget process. So basically, again, my presentation is very short. There will be a more robust in July when I have a lot more information to give you guys. So basically, our district budget includes 5 funds. We have a general fund, ASB, debt service, capital projects, and TDF. Those are basically the general information, basically what each fund supports. Yeah. So I'm not sure if you guys want me to read that or. Okay. So basically, general fund is our main fund, right? That has the majority of our money. We pay the majority of our staff, MSOC, all that wonderful stuff. Capital projects is usually our capital, our buildings, things of that nature. Debt services, when we go out for bonds and levies, not levies, excuse me, our bonds. We pay directly from that particular fund. ASB is the fund at the schools, the students, the associated student body runs that piece. And then TDS is the fund that we use to purchase our transportation vehicles. All right, so this is the most important slide, right? So looking forward to 23-24, some of our challenges, one of our main challenge is 33% increase in our premium, in our insurance premium. This year it was 571,000. Next year will be 764,000. There's a couple of different factors with that. We've had a lot of, as everybody's aware, a lot of vandalism, a lot of replacing. The catalytic converters are like high on everybody's list. And so that is one piece that plays into that with our insurance claims. The other piece is the increase of the property tax. So that also plays a piece into the overall increase. I believe the average was about 24% for districts. The lowest was about 18% because I did ask those questions like, hey, why is it so high? And it keeps going up every year. 21, 22, there was an increase because of the a lot of the sexual misconduct that happened, a lot of those claims coming through, so that was another increase. So it seems like we keep getting additional increases
It's
with
things
our
from
insurance
like
premium.
forever ago, right?
And a lot of that stuff came forward, and then a lot of districts were getting hit with those types of claims, including ourselves, which then again increased our.
Another silly
premium.
question, there probably are a lot of insurance companies that support school districts, right? So it's not like about if you go do shopping, kind of.
Right, we're part of a consortium,
Uh,
whatever.
there's
management.
How does, you said property, what is property tax?
The property valuation.
What does that
Tax,
have to do with? insurance?
I believe based on like when you do your claims and if there's vandalism, the property of that property has increased in price. So when you get reimbursed at a higher rate because the rate goes up, they're reimbursing you at a higher rate because the property tax is higher. It costs that much more. I can forward you what.
Well, it
our
sounds like
risk
what you're saying
management-
is the cost, construction cost. I mean, for example, when we had Foster vandalized. right?
Mhm.
And so the cost to build all, to recover all the things that were vandalized, that gone up due to inflation. Is that what you're talking about?
Mhm.
Okay, yeah, I guess I don't think of that as. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, the value of the property.
There we go.
When you
Yeah,
say
you said
property, I
value.
think
Sorry, I
about
should have said
the house,
value.
okay, value of the
Right, sorry.
property.
Guess
Yeah,
I could have added
yeah,
another word in
value of
there.
the property that was vandalized, got it.
Yes.
Okay, so that's just an inflation factor that's
Correct.
always going up, but, okay, yeah, it's a little. Disagreeable, so the average is 24%, and we were going up even higher than that.
Mhm.
And you say because of some of the vandalism issues that we had, and I thought we had kind of tightened down on. You know, the reporting structure, I mean, we got cameras up there,
Mhm.
and who gets notified when when one of the motion sensors goes off? So that we catch people before they get too far into it.
Yeah, that's usually the goal, right? Usually
Okay.
it goes off. I mean, because sometimes we're human, things happen.
Yeah.
But yes,
So
ideally,
it
yes,
sounds like
if it
you have
goes
to-
off, we have a
yeah,
person
yeah.
that's supposed
Sounds like
to
you
come
have
in
to work
and
to
check.
do in terms of making sure that our systems are. As responsive as possible to prevent anybody from doing that kind of
Yes,
stuff,
and
and
the-
catch them as quickly as possible.
Correct, and the other
Yeah.
pieces too is that making sure that before a claim is processed, that there's a conversation, because we need a threshold on that. Is it really worth, claiming
Yeah,
a
yeah,
$20,000 hit if
Right.
it contributes to
right,
an increase?
yeah,
The other piece that everybody is aware is just kind of the ESSER cliff. For the most part, ESSER has kind of been keeping us a little afloat, not afloat enough, but a little afloat. So really making sure that we're intentional in 23, well now through 23, 24 to see what that looks like. Because again, we do have people tied into ESSER. We have services tied into ESSER, and then really, as I have stated before, going back to that zero-based budgeting to say, what are our non-negotiables? What do we want our district to look like? How do we want our students to learn? What does that look like? And then building from the ground up. And if our enrollment does not continue, because we do see an increase, but if enrollment does not continue to climb, or we do not make sure that our enrollment is aligned with our staffing, then we will be making some really tough decisions. Yes, and then inflation's another piece, outside of just like IPD, we have, just as in our last board meeting, we talked about transportation. How a good majority of the services have almost double in services. And Ms. Kelly is phenomenal with how she negotiates her partnerships, her relationships, and they've done, even with a projected $395,000 deficit, she has really worked to even get those numbers a lot lower, as well as, construction costs, and then things just even with just regular services, even within the maintenance and operation department. And again, as we all are aware of our decreased ending fund balance. With that, we have some opportunities. On a quick calculation between the state increase in special education, we are looking at about a $459,000 increase on apportionment next year, so that is a plus. We also have some new housing developments which have slowly started to help increase our enrollment, so hopefully that will keep trending on an up and up. Another piece that I did not add there that I wanted to speak to was kind of, I believe our Head Start got some additional funding, and we are hoping that they trickle down their 5.6% to us, so that can help with our subsidy costs in Head Start. So that will help the bottom line. That'll be roughly $22,000 based on this year's funding amount. And another piece which will actually help this year's fund balance, but I did not put it on the forecasted document because it's still preliminary, would be our safety net. We submitted close to 500,000. What was allocated in the budget that we thought we were going to see was about 250,000, but we are actually preliminarily expected to receive 386,000, which puts us at a positive at 136,000. So that kind of helps.
That's the special
The bottom
education
line.
safety net, right? That
Yeah.
goes today.
And that total is a combination of federal and state. Usually they give us more state than federal. Either way, it will still help the bottom line.
Because we also, I think, I guess I will say, they're talking about a transportation safety net, but that's, I think, not implemented yet. No, okay. That would help us too, if that, that's right, that's stalled, yeah, the legislature went right up to the point and then they decided they want it, yeah, okay. Next year.
We're done that.
So that's what I have for that slide. And then the next piece is pretty much just our enrollment projection. So we are projected at 2,493 students. The way that the enrollment works is there's the F203 system, which is our revenue system, right? We put in all our enrollment and all of our wonderful information. And what happens is based on what we project our enrollment to be, we have an apportionment allocation, and they pay us based on that projected amount between September and December. And then what they do is they take that average, and if you are at target, that's great. If you're under, they will take back that money. They will reduce it over time to right size you. The other piece to that is, like, let's say if in our case, our enrollment happens to go up later in the year past January, they take the average of that. So you get 1/10 of that increase because it's an average over the 10 months. So it's not like, you know, you get 50 kids, which is, let's say 10,000, 500,000, it doesn't work that way. You get a 10th of that, which is 50,000. So just fun math. All right, and then ESSER estimated budget, really weird, okay. So ESSER, the learning loss, we're looking at roughly about 1.1 million for next school year, and for the most part, a lot of that's on summer school and tutoring. I will be having community budget forums around ESSER in July. The dates will be to be determined, but that will be shared within the next couple weeks. And then ESSER 3, we're looking at about 3.2 million, roughly, depending on how we end this year. But again, we have support staff, teachers, some extracurricular, meal support, social and emotional supports, and counseling supports.
Where is that meal supports?
That piece is to help fund Stillwater's, yes, great. As well as some after school programs for snacks and things like that nature.
So do we have an estimate about the FTEs, the staff FTE that is currently being supported by ESSER dollars?
I can get that to you by tomorrow. I know that's gonna be a question. I don't know why I didn't do it, but yes, I'll get that to you by tomorrow.
The last ESSER reports too, but it may have changed, it likely changed.
Yeah, I'll run a report to you, because now we have, yeah, I'll just have to.
Because that will be the stuff that just goes away, and so.
Yes, we'll have to work
Look
it.
at those positions and say, okay, either we keep them and eliminate something else,
Yeah,
or they go away, one of the two.
Well, correct, depending on what we do as a collective whole, what we
Right.
want our district to look like, yes.
Right, well, that's what I mean.
Yep.
Because, because my understanding is most of those positions are support positions as opposed to certificated. Well, as opposed to teachers, as opposed to teachers.
Correct, I think
Yeah.
there might be a couple of teachers, but the
Yeah,
rest of them, yes,
yeah.
are support services, that's
Okay.
correct.
Which will be noticeable when they're gone.
Yeah. Absolutely.
No, yeah. Virtually every position we support is gone.
Yeah.
I mean, we a number of years ago, people were talking, there's a lot of bad in this district, but that's not the case anymore. Years ago, went through and actually your predecessor, whacked a lot of anything, so there's just not, not a lot of fat to be cut at all.
Do I have any additional questions? Just short and sweet, but again, more detailed in July.
Budget time, so lots of things.
That it is.
Thank you. All right, home stretch. All right, that brings us to our action items, which I'm just gonna give a second for Jane to just have more than a quarter. Okay, so I'm gonna present a motion for the approval of the human resources staffing report.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next is item 9A, which is the approval of the interim superintendent contract for Dr. Kansi Pedroza for the 2023-2024 school year.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, next is. So I guess this is less of an approval, but I need to bring a motion forward to appoint a superintendent designee for July 1st to July 9th. And that person is going to be Aaron Dragonoff. Did I say that right?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. So I'm putting the motion forward to appoint Aaron as a superintendent designee for those 8 days. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all right, perfect. And then next is the action 9A, which is approval of the 22-23 highly capable program. I'll provide context after the motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so from what I understand, why this got put on the agenda is we have been implementing a highly capable program this entire year, but there was an oops in getting it actually on our agenda for the board approval. We've since seen reports, we've seen progress, we've seen all the things, it just didn't officially get approved. So that's what this is. So backdating this approval a little bit. All in favor of approving the 2022-2023 highly capable plan? Say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And then the last is the approval of the resolution number 933, which is approval of the interfund loan, which Ms. Person spoke about a little bit ago.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Boy. I just feel bad that we continually have to. Not any kind of law.
It's gonna be paid back.
Well, that's because we have 1% fund balance.
Yeah. Just, yeah. It bothers me. But
In this case, though, I mean, the capital fund is kind of the leftover from the bond, so we got like 4 or 5 million that are waiting for the PAC renovation. So shifting that money in and out doesn't really, I mean, it's not a good thing to be doing in the sense that we have one that we have to do it, but it's doesn't really.
Law, almost everything.
Yeah, it doesn't. The money's sitting there, so I mean, we're just not really shifting it And we're paying 2%, which is what I'm getting from the city, so it's not negatively impacting your capital money, which hopefully will be able to use soon for renovating that.
So they fully will have, having to do that.
Yeah. And I'm sure our CFO would like that.
That's yeah, just a little bit, yeah. Okay, so this brings us to our second and final opportunity for public comment. If you've heard anything in the discussion, tonight that you want to provide a comment, ask questions around, and now is your chance to do that. You can raise your hand or type your name in the chat. In just a second, find that raise hand button, just in case. All right. Seeing none, it's 8:45. I'm gonna go ahead and move us to adjourn. All right, all in favor?
All right.
Nice job.
Party. One week, Sarah.
Um,
Letter.